Hello everyone, welcome to No Man's Sky. My name is Jeff, and you are here with me at what I consider to be a lab base, not a real base, but a sandbox where I have been playing with power. And in this case, a specific experiment, it's more than an experiment now, it's a design on how to do what I call a real combination of lock, and a manageable one as well. It actually uses push buttons instead of levers, and it respects the sequence of that you want entered, not just a combination of the numbers that you use. There's some other nice features about it. Let's get started. I'll show you that this code, I have it programmed for 1, 3, 2, and I'll show you when we get inside how easy it is to reprogram. I'll do that later in the video. If I go 1, 3, and then 2, turn around, the door is opening, just as it should. And there's a delay, there's a timer inside. It will close itself when the timer is done. And there it goes. So there's also a reset button. So in this, for the purposes of creating this tutorial, I didn't go any further than making using 0 through 3. I'm making a 3-digit. I have a 3-digit code, and I wanted one unnecessary digit. Again, for illustration, it's not a big deal to add, digits 4 through 9. But just again for illustration, I'm just doing this many. And there's a reset button again. Reset is, of course, to tell the system to start. That I'm going to start entering digits fresh. But you don't necessarily have to use reset, just so you know. Most of the time, it really is not even necessary. But if in doubt, you can hit it and say, I'm starting over. If you enter in a wrong code, if I put in 1, 2, and then 3, door is not opening. If I put in 0, did you see that light up? 0. That's an invalid digit. Right off the bat, it's invalid. You can see that wire going. If I press 2, look to your left. You see that wire lit up on the reset. It knows the first digit is wrong. The first digit is 1. If I hit 1, you notice that didn't light up that time. The reset button did not light up. No, ship is landing. All right. So in this case, I'm just going to continue on and type in the proper sequence. We're going to go inside. Look up. You can see the timer working. Timer comes down. It resets. So let's start with this. But first, this room is full of wiring for what really can be compacted down to a very small device that would take no more than probably, if I was putting this in a real base, it would be in a basement, and it would be probably no more than 3, I'd say tiles, but like floor panels wide, maybe a couple deep, and 1 tall. So that's not much. That's not much of a footprint at all, considering what this does. And again, in this lab, with it all scaled up like this, it's going to be much easier for me to break down for you the components of how this works. So one of the first things I mentioned is the door is on a timer. If you've done anything with wiring at all, you should recognize what this is. It's a repeater. So power goes in. In this case, power comes in from the same source with auto switches. If the input on the top and the modifier on the side, they both are receiving power, then power will flow through. And when you see that happening, it just sort of jumps like every half second to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. Comes down here, and then it comes down here, and then in this case, it's plugged into what I call the reset circuit. All right. So all these buttons, to be clear, this button and all these buttons, 2, 3, and 1, they are actually wired just for illustration. through here and behind the wall to the other buttons. They're basically are chained together. There's no any special wiring. Again, I just wanted to be able to be on the inside and watch things work when you press the button, so that you know on the outside what's really happening. So in a normal design, at a normal base, I probably wouldn't even have these buttons here, but just wire directly to the buttons at the front door. All right, so back to the reset button. So the timer utilizes the same circuit that the reset button itself uses. So that way, when the door has been open long enough, power drops down through and travels all the way down through here and goes up to the modifier on all these inverters. There's an inverter for number 3, there's an inverter for number 2, and an inverter for number 1. These inverters are in what I call loopers, all right? These loops. And what happens is, when you push a button, when you push 3, 2, or 1, these loops get charged. And what I mean is, let's go to 1. So main power, again, this is, I normally wouldn't run a wire like this on the outside, but I run a main power in. It's coming over, and it's driving down through and powering each one of the buttons. We'll talk about 0 later. So number 1, it has a button. It's getting power from the main power, and it also has, at the first point of the looper, an auto switch. So that way, when you press 1, all right, power came up, it split, it went to the modifier. Both conditions are true here on the input and the modifier, and therefore power is able to come out. It's able to go over here and come back to the inverter. The inverter says, well, there's nothing modifying me. There's no power on my modifier, so I'm just going to let power flow through, come around, come back into the modifier, and just continue that cycle. So now, once, just so you know, when you push a button, it just sends a bleep of power. There's no more power really flowing through here. What you're seeing is it's coming back, sort of feeding back from the loop. So don't be confused about that if you're not familiar with how that works. The button right now is not pressed. There's not a lever. Power is not really flowing through. It's just seeing it echo back. But anyway, it goes around through the looper. Through the loop, it's charged. The reset circuit that basically modifies all these inverters and if on, discharge the loop. It's not on, so therefore the loop, it will stay charged. So pressing 1 means that the power travels all the way across and comes down here into this. So this is a 3-digit code, all right? So hold that thought a second, it comes here. 3-digit code means that on this side, I have 3 auto switches, all right? I pressed 1. Main power flows, it doesn't just go that direction, it comes this direction. It flows up to the auto switch, and until I press 1, which is the first digit of my combination, this modifier on the auto switch doesn't get modified. It's not on. So therefore, power will not flow through. But once it's on, power flows to the next in the line. All right? And in order to go on, number 3 has to be pressed. Once 3 is pressed, if you follow that line, it goes over here, and it doesn't go to 2. It moves across and comes down to 3. Notice again, 1, 2, and 3, they all have the same loop. All right? So once 3 is charged, its loop is charged, and it's not reset. It doesn't show any reset. It stays charged. It powers the modifier on 2, and then it would flow through to the next. Now, if I were to press 2, what's going to happen is 2 is wired. Its loop is wired. If you go up here and follow, it goes over here to the 3rd auto switch. It goes into its modifier. But notice we're not there yet. 2 is 2. It comes if I send power down through here, and this is on. There's no power coming in here yet from the second auto switch, so power won't come off of here and go into the modifier of this inverter. Notice all three two of the auto switches. I'll explain why the first one. 2 of the auto switches have inverters, and the reason is because until there is power, if there's no power coming from the second one to the third and not extending into the modifier of this inverter, well, guess what? When power comes, power that branches off here, it branches off, comes down, it comes down through it until that's powered. Well, let's just watch what happens here. I'm going to press 2 deliberately because it's the wrong sequence. Watch. Did you see that blink? Let's do that again. Go 1. Okay, it goes on to the second one. If I go to 2. All right. So what happened? Power came down here. All right. Power came down here, and since there was no modifier, it's an inverter, power went on through. Power was inserted into the reset circuit. And what happens on the reset circuit? They all go up into the inverter and they discharge whatever you pressed. If you pressed anything before, everything was discharged. Everything, all these buttons were discharged just by getting the wrong digit. So again, power that goes down to this modifier, that's great, but it also comes down here, and this inverter asks the question, do I have power coming in my modifier yet from the second auto switch? Well, no, I don't. So therefore, I'm going to let the power go on. I'm going to let it go down through the reset circuit and reset and break until all those inverters stop, discharge the power. We're done. We're not going to convey the power anymore. So that way, so let's go through and press 1. Goes to the second one. Now if I press 3, see, that inverter allowed it to go on, or that inverter stopped letting power go through because that circuit is telling the modifier, it's putting it into an on condition. So therefore, inverted means no power is going to pass through. There's not going to be any resetting of that circuit. There's not going to be any resetting of all the charged digits. All right, so now we're down to the third. So when I press 2, what's going to happen is 2 will send a charge here. These 2 will be true, and they'll both stay true. Because when the inverter receives it, it'll say, oh, I can't pass on power because this is in an on state. So that guarantees that they must enter in the same sequence, and if they fail, there it goes. Look at the, see that there's the delay. Power goes in, resets. It sent an impulse down through, and all those are discharged. Let's watch that again. 1, 3, 2, come back. Timer. The timer on the repeater. There, send a signal. They all discharged. And the second they're discharged, what happens? Sorry. The second they're discharged, that means power. Now, this inverter. Everybody knows how this works with doors. Again, if the door is past power, it shuts. If it doesn't have power, then it doesn't have power, it opens. Satisfied. Power passed through, went over the door, came down, told the inverter, don't let power through anymore. Don't let main power go through to the door anymore, and it shut off until the timer reset the system. Let's watch that again. 1, 3, 2. Timer is active, and you see the inverter is active. Power power reached, the inverter. So main power, we want main power to flow all the way through these auto switches. We want it to go over the door, come down through, and into the auto switch. I'm sorry, into the inverter. And that way the door will open for as long as the timer works. So, as I said earlier, you can add all 9 digits. The way this system works, if you want a 10-digit code, then what you'll need to do is you'll need to have for each digit a component that looks like that, the looper. And then out of that, you'll need to have it coming to a component. If you can sort of visualize, if you're compacting this design into a basement, you know, like we all of us who are very obsessive about being tidy about this, you would have component cards, you know, like each one being like maybe a wall down there dedicated to a purpose. So you might have a wall with or a couple of walls with these on them, and then a wall with or a couple of walls with these. So you need as many of these components as you have digits that must be entered to achieve your code. For unused digits, you only need to really do this. Basically, the 0 is like a reset button. I mean, if I never intend to use 0, I don't need to take the time to make a loop component. I don't need to. So if they punch in 0, it's just an invalid digit outright. It has nothing to do. So they wouldn't know that on the outside, but you would. Now, if you may want to rewire, change your code once in a while, then you may want to go ahead and take the time to put those on each digit, so that way all you have to do is this. Getting back to if you're compacting this into your basement, you would have a card that would effectively accomplish what this wall is accomplishing. So when you want to reprogram and you want to say instead of 1, 2, and 3, instead of 1, 3, and 2 as your code, you wanted 1, 2, and 3, you would switch those output wires off of each of their of their loops. Like if you wanted 1, 2, and 3 to be the code, then instead of running it over to here to the 3rd auto switch, you would run it to the 2nd auto switch, and respectively you would run 3 instead of to 2 auto switch, you would run it to 1. And again, you can have a very compact card, it could be a wall down in your basement with 3 of these. Now if you wanted a 10-digit code, you would simply have 9 or 10 of these auto switches in a line, so that your power, your goal is to have power go through each one in the desired sequence to the door. So, and you would make sure to mimic what I've done here with the inverters. Notice that the first one, when you do that though, you notice that I didn't put an inverter on the first auto switch in the stream. Well, why? You don't need to, because it is the first. It's not, in this case, the 2nd and the 3rd, I want to make sure that the first has been satisfied. Well, if I enter in 2 or 3, the numbers 2 or 3, it's always going to keep, they're going to reset every time. If I hit 1, it's the first in the chain. If I wanted 3 to be the first, I would run it over here, and 1 would be over there, and it would operate the same way. But one thing stands true: you don't need an inverter on the first one, and likewise, you don't need loopers on any of the digits that you don't plan to use. You would simply do that for the future, for when you wanted to change the combinations. So changing combinations again are, you run the wire to the so if I wanted 1 to be the last, I would run its wire over to the 3rd auto switch and in the chain. If I had 10 auto switches, I could have a 10-digit code. Now, one thing about this design, believe me, I could have gone a lot further, but again, I'm trying to keep it, make it reasonable. I mean, if you have a 4-digit code, you have 999, 9,999 numbers. So add 5, and make it 5, you can have 10,000 numbers. So you don't have to worry about what I'm going to say that if I that where you really it's sort of useless to program a let's say if you wanted a code number 233. All right. Well, there's no point in that, because what's going to happen is let me do. I'll put in 1. Now I'm going to repeat 3. 1 is started. 3. 3 is true. Watch when I hit 3 again. I mean, nothing happens. You're not going to have a repeat of any number in your code if you just do this design. But it's well enough that you have the option to have such a long code, and you don't really need to repeat a number. So this design works very well. Just want to point that out. So I notice I keep hitting 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. You can actually pretend. You can actually pretend that your code is 1, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, and it'll still be fine. Your code can be 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, 2. So you can pretend you have much longer code than you really do. But in the end, it was just satisfied that I just did things in the right sequence. So that covers it. You would just compact this down. It's all the components are the same. You don't need to use all these wiring junction points that I used. I only did this for illustration, so it's easier to look at. Wires can be, run diagonal. I frankly think it's not so bad to do it this way. I can still make this much tighter and take up a very small space in a basement. Have a really cool setup. I like the idea of having a timed door. If this was a real base, I wouldn't have. When I come inside, I would not be looking to have to code myself out. I would be, I would have a proximity sensor on the door that would open the door and bypass all this and let me out. That could be another video another time, but I think most of us understand that you can set up a proximity sensor to tell the door open, and a little bit of adjustment here can make that happen. For the illustration, I wanted you to see the simple buttons outside first to see how that would really look. This, and then I wanted you to be able to see sort of the inside the system, how it works. So it's resetting itself according to design. It works really well. I plan to use this on some big bases that I have where I sort of want to keep people out, not going in. They're in community areas, and some people are a little provoked at times for some reason about bases with doors. I don't get it. It's weird. It's go in and try to terrain manipulate, dig you out, and so on. But as long as they don't get in and try to glitch or mess with my stuff, and so I create these combination locks, and I don't publish the code right outside. So if you do get back to this planet, the hub, you can come and mess with it yourself on planet Enowa. It's in the Galactic HUB. If you don't know where that's at, Galactic HUB, go to the portal address you see here in the lower left. Screenshot those glyphs. And it's on a different planet, a nicer planet. You'll portal into a very harsh planet. And when you get on the planet, you see on the dashboard there that the coordinates are minus 2.69 and minus 152.92. There's 3 landing pads for you to use. Feel free to come in, help yourself. There's a teleport. There's a teleport for you if you want to mark it. The base is called, quite simply, My Real Push Button Combo Lock, Lab for All. So I hope this has been helpful. I'll do more of these in the future. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. And I look forward to seeing you out there in No Man's Sky. Have a great day.